Chapter 1059. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang did not look at Bloody Rose. At this moment Bloody Rose was like a clown. She was too lazy to pay attention to her. Raising her phoenix-like eyes slightly, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching. She came here today for the challenge tournament, but the sudden appearance of Bloody Rose delayed her plan. Now it was time to continue the battle. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Bewitching immediately understood and nodded immediately. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her beautiful face was even more beautiful. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's tacit understanding, Bloody Rose was even more jealous. Ordinary people would not have this kind of tacit understanding at all. Then Bailey Hongzhuang went directly to the arena. Her indifferent eyes glanced at the practitioners present and said, "Who wants to come up?" As soon as she said that, the practitioners present could not help but be stunned. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to go to the arena at this moment. They could not defeat Bewitching, but it was not difficult to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang do this, Bloody Rose's eyes showed a touch of joy. What she wanted was for Bailey Hongzhuang to do this. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang died in the arena, then all these problems would not exist. Whoever can defeat her, my promise is still effective. With Bloody Rose's words, a touch of passion flashed in the eyes of the practitioners present again. Previously, they were really frightened by Bewitching's strength. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength could not be as strong as Bewitching's. Defeating Bailey Hongzhuang was much easier than defeating Bewitching. As for killing Bailey Hongzhuang, such a great beauty, if they really wanted to kill her, they really couldn't bear it. Perhaps he could even take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang in this arena. With such a stunning beauty, as long as he could take advantage of her, it would be a great joy. Although Bewitching was very strong, other than the arena, no one was allowed to fight in the Blood Chi Tower, so they didn't need to worry. Hence, when the crowd saw Bailey Hongzhuang walk up to the stage, they began to stir. In the blink of an eye, a man had already leaped onto the stage. "Beauty, I'll compete with you." The referee walked up to the ring and recorded the identities of Bailey Hongzhuang and the man. Soon the betting odds were out. However, based on their battle records, the man's odds were lower than Bailey Hongzhuang's. This meant that the Blood Chi Tower was more optimistic about the man's strength. Seeing this, the cultivators present began to place their bets one after another. After what happened just now, they were even more interested in this match. Bewitching gave Heimu a look. Heimu immediately understood, and immediately walked to the betting area. At this time, he naturally bet on the young madam winning. The crowd also realized that Heimu was Bewitching's follower. When they saw Heimu throw in a large amount of gold coins, the crowd's expression changed. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang not only had an extraordinary bearing and great strength, but their financial resources were also very shocking. This amount was already considered a huge bet in the Blood Chi Tower. After placing his bet, Heimu returned to Bewitching's side, and the two of them sat down in the spectators' stand. Chapter 1060. The female attendants on the second floor of the Blood Chi Tower had already regarded Bewitching as their Prince Charming. This man was simply every woman's Prince Charming. In a moment, the group of women had already made Bailey Hongzhuang their new target. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had said, so what if there were so many men here who adored her? It would be better to capture Bewitching alone. This was because Bewitching alone was more important than all the men present. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the man in front of her. The man was about 23 years old, and had a perfectly round body, which made him look even shorter than he already was. He stood there like a winter melon, but his narrow eyes flickered with a shrewd and lecherous light. At this moment, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with an unbridled gaze, obviously intending to take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang in this competition. Of course, this man was not the only one who had such thoughts. Many of the men present had the same thought. If they could take advantage of this competition to get close to Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be a great joy for them. Noticing the lecherous light in his eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with disgust. She hated this kind of gaze the most. It made her feel uncomfortable from the bottom of her heart. Let the competition begin. Following the referee's command, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the man immediately got into position. Bailey Hongzhuang did not intend to waste too much time with the man. She wanted to end this battle quickly. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flew over and did not give the man any time to think. She suddenly attacked. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang did not take out the colored glazed sword. Yesterday's battle with the 4 bronze men in the trial had given her some insights. She could take advantage of today's opportunity to integrate her insights. This was one of the great benefits of the Bloodground Abyss. In this place, there was no need to worry about not having opponents. When the man saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was preparing to engage in close combat with him, the excitement in his eyes became even more intense. This was what he was looking forward to the most. When the men present saw Bailey Hongzhuang's decision, their hearts were filled with envy. If they had known that there would be such an opportunity, they would have rushed up first. Now, this fatty had actually taken advantage of them. Bloody Rose's lips raised a sneer, as if she was mocking Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior. Bailey Hongzhuang had pretended to be aloof before, but now she actually used such a method to fight. Wasn't this equivalent to slapping her own face? Bloody Rose turned around and wanted to know what kind of expression Bewitching would have after seeing such a situation. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's current approach was suspicious of ambiguity. However, Bloody Rose looked at Bewitching's indifferent appearance, as if Bailey Hongzhuang's approach had not exceeded his expectations at all. Thinking of this, Bloody Rose could not help but frown. It was reasonable to say that any man who saw this scene would not be able to bear it. The next second, Bloody Rose suddenly got up and walked to Bewitching's side and sat down. There were many cultivators near the stands, but because of Bewitching's previous display of strength, no one dared to approach. Therefore, the position next to Bewitching was empty. Chapter 1061. Feeling Bewitching's disregard. Bloody Rose's expression did not change, which was not beyond her expectation. Your wife doesn't seem to be so pure. Bloody Rose spoke slowly, but her eyes were constantly looking at Bewitching, wanting to know Bewitching's thoughts. Bewitching turned his eyes and looked at Bloody Rose beside him. His handsome chin, which was as sharp as a knife, showed a cold and hard arc, and the words he said were even colder and more heartless. Stay away from me. As soon as the words came out, Bloody Rose's face was stiff for a moment. She did not expect Bewitching to speak so coldly and impolitely. Do you think it's not good for me? Bloody Rose asked tentatively. According to her understanding over the years, men should like her amorous feelings. Why was the man in front of her not interested in her at all? My wife is not someone you can compare with. Get out. Bewitching's voice was cold, with warning and no doubt. With Bewitching's voice falling, Bloody Rose only felt that her whole body was shrouded by a kind of pressure, and she was so scared that she could not move. This man's momentum was really amazing. The most important thing was that the man showed disgust and decisiveness, which deeply hurt her heart. It was obvious that other women could not get into his heart, except Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking of this, Bloody Rose could not help but feel jealous and disappointed. But in the face of Bewitching's overbearing and decisive words, she did not dare to continue to stay here. Looking at Bewitching's indifferent and decisive eyes, she had no doubt that if she continued to stand here, Bewitching would never be polite to her. Bloody Rose stood up awkwardly and returned to her previous place. She was just not reconciled. It was rare for her to see a man who could make her surrender over the years, but this man did not like her at all. After seeing that Bloody Rose failed to seduce Bewitching one after another, people's expressions changed a little. However, in the eyes of more people, Bloody Rose was indeed not worthy of Bewitching. Blackwood looked at Bloody Rose, who was leaving. There was a trace of mockery in his eyes. A woman like her wouldn't even have the chance to talk to the young lord normally. Now, she actually wanted to be the young lord's woman. How ridiculous. On the stage, Bailey Hongzhuang was already fighting with the man at lightning speed. With yesterday's enlightenment, she was able to fight with the man much more smoothly today. The man's cultivation was also at the 4th level of the Red Realm, so it was not difficult for her. Even without using any martial skills, Bailey Hongzhuang dealt with them extremely quickly. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and grabbed the man's hand. She pulled hard, and the man's hand was dislocated. The man turned sideways and tried to escape from Bailey Hongzhuang's control. However, he did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would directly chop him in the neck. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang was merciless. With a chop, the man fell heavily to the ground and fainted immediately. Everyone thought that the man could take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would make the man have no chance to take advantage of her at all. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang's attack was extremely neat, and her close combat ability was obviously excellent. Bailey Hongzhuang wins. Chapter 1062. After the referee announced the result, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile as she looked at Di Beichen. Di Beichen nodded to Bailey Hongzhuang with appreciation in his eyes. He could feel the changes in Bailey Hongzhuang after she came to the Bloodland Abyss. Her progress was very good. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's progress, he was also very pleased. His woman would become stronger little by little. After everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang defeated the cultivator at the 4th level of the Red Realm so easily, there was a touch of surprise in their eyes. They already knew yesterday that Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Xiong Kai at the 6th level of the Red Realm, but they did not take it seriously, because, even if the cultivation was high, the strength was not necessarily strong. They were able to reach the 2nd floor of the Blood Qi Tower, and had experienced a lot of competitions. Such examples were not unheard of. On the contrary, there were many. It was precisely because of this that when they heard the news, they only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent was too weak, but they never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was too strong. At this moment, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang winning so easily, they felt that their previous ideas might be a little wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang was not very weak. Bloody Rose's face was also a little ugly. What she wanted to see was Bailey Hongzhuang being defeated and rolling down the ring. It would be best if Bailey Hongzhuang died directly in the ring. However, things did not go as she wished. Bailey Hongzhuang won. After winning a game, Bailey Hongzhuang did not directly go down the ring, but continued to say, "Who's next?" Since others said that she was arrogant, she would be arrogant all the way here. Arrogance was never a problem. The problem was that she dared to be arrogant without strength. Obviously, she was not such a person. In the Bloodland Abyss, there were many arrogant cultivators. Anyone who was not arrogant could go up and compete with them. Similarly, she did not care about others saying that she was arrogant. On the contrary, this could save her a lot of trouble. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang continue to challenge, everyone could not help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang's action on the 1st floor of the Blood Qi Tower yesterday. Would she be preparing to do the same thing on the 2nd floor? Bailey Hongzhuang doesn't want to get 10 consecutive victories here, does she? She's too bold. She is a newcomer with a little strength. She really thinks she is great. Brother, go up and teach her a lesson. The strength is on the 2nd floor. The strength is strengths. Is death's door. No one was optimistic about Bailey Hongzhuang. The same thing could not be repeated. Bailey Hongzhuang's action was undoubtedly provoking them all. Bailey Hongzhuang took in the expressions of the audience, but in her heart, she didn't care at all. Young Master, does young Madam really plan to challenge 10 people in a row? Heimu was a little incredulous. This was not a simple matter. From the discussions of the surrounding cultivators, he vaguely understood that young Madam seemed to have done this yesterday. However, Di Beichen smiled faintly. Why not? His woman was the same as him. They both had a kind of arrogance in their hearts. This kind of arrogance might be hateful in the eyes of others, but it was not a bad thing for them. It was to protect this arrogance that they could keep moving forward. Chapter 1063. Seeing Di Beichen's confident smile, Heimu was stunned for a moment. He did not expect the young master to be so confident in his wife's strength. For a moment, Heimu could not help but recall the time when the young madam and the young master went out for training. The young madam cultivated desperately under the waterfall. Her perseverance and unyielding character possessed a strength that no other woman possessed. It seemed that he had underestimated the young madam. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang said that, another cultivator walked up to the ring. "I'll do it." Bailey Hongzhuang was immersed in her comprehension of close-range combat. She could not wait for someone to give her a chance to practice. That cultivator from before was too weak. He was no match for her at all. Now that she saw another cultivator walking up to the ring, she was very excited. The referee registered the information of the two people very quickly, and the odds were also quickly announced. Now that the Blood Chi Tower had a new evaluation of Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, Bailey Hongzhuang's odds had decreased a lot. It was even lower than the cultivator's odds. The originally confident man's face turned ugly when he found out about the odds that the Blood Chi Tower had arranged for him. He did not expect the Blood Chi Tower to suddenly increase their evaluation of Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Did this mean that the Blood Chi Tower thought that he would lose to a fledgling woman? Thinking of this, the man's eyes turned gloomy. However, the Blood Chi Tower was too powerful. He naturally did not dare to be dissatisfied with the Blood Chi Tower. Immediately, the man transferred all his anger to Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the match had not started yet, he had already been slapped in the face. Haha, Xue Huatian is usually a very arrogant person. I didn't expect the odds to be so high. What a joke! Isn't it obvious? The Blood Chi Tower thinks that Xue Huatian's strength is inferior to Bailey Hongzhuang. I've seen this guy fight before. He's not very strong. I'm afraid there's nothing to see in this match. Bailey Hongzhuang is going to win 2 matches in a row. Hearing the mocking words from below the stage, Xue Huatian's eyes became even gloomier. He secretly swore that he would use his fists to prove his strength. Bailey Hongzhuang also felt that the man in front of her was filled with endless hatred towards her. Her beautiful and refined face was indifferent and elegant. Even in the face of such hostile gazes, her eyes remained calm. Begin. As soon as the referee spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have changed into another person. She was no longer as calm as before. Instead, she attacked as fast as lightning. Bang! It was just a simple collision, but Xue Huatian couldn't help but take 2 steps back. A hint of surprise appeared on his face. He had never placed Bailey Hongzhuang in his eyes. Now that they had exchanged blows, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's power was actually so terrifying. Previously, when he had seen Bailey Hongzhuang fighting against others, he had thought that her opponents were too weak and did not have any power at all. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's power would be so abnormal. Forget about a woman, even a man of the same level of cultivation would not be able to wield such power. However, Bailey Hongzhuang completely ignored the shock in the man's heart. Her hands circled around like agile snakes. Her fingers, hands, elbows, knees, and legs all became her weapons. She attacked her opponent fiercely and violently. Chapter 1064. When Heimu saw Bailey Hongzhuang's clean and efficient attack, a look of amazement surfaced in his eyes. After not seeing her for a while, the young mistress's improvement in strength was truly shocking. She was on a completely different level from before. Bang! Following Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful side kick, Xue Huatian was directly kicked out of the arena by Bailey Hongzhuang. Xue Huatian fell heavily to the ground. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's kick was very heavy, Xue Huatian's injuries were not very serious. He subconsciously wanted to stand up, but being kicked out of the arena by Bailey Hongzhuang was even more humiliating than being killed. Xue Huatian felt that it was difficult to face the crowd's mocking gazes. Thinking of this, Xue Huatian simply pretended to faint. As long as he left the Blood Chi Tower now, he believed that everyone would gradually forget about this matter when he came back a few days later. In the arena, Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Xue Huatian had directly fainted and frowned slightly. Based on the situation of her attack just now, Xue Huatian should not have fainted. With a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed Xue Huatian's slightly trembling eyelids and immediately understood. She did not expect Xue Huatian to be so thin-skinned. He was so arrogant before, but now he was actually pretending to be dead. Bailey Hongzhuang wins. The referee's voice rang out again. This time, the Blood Chi Tower finally made a correct assessment of strength. When the cultivators present saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had won again, their expressions changed again. I told you that trash like Xue Huatian is no match for Bailey Hongzhuang. It's normal for him to lose. It's a good thing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not kill him. Xue Huatian and his opponent only fainted. As soon as this was said, The crowd remembered that Bailey Hongzhuang only wanted to defeat her opponent and did not want to kill them, just like yesterday on the first floor. Next, Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently as her gaze fell upon the spectator's stand. Beads of sweat appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's fair and smooth forehead, but her eyes revealed a carefree and satisfied smile. That round of close combat earlier, she expended quite a bit of strength, but the consumption of essence energy was very small. A cultivator's endurance was also a part of their strength. In her previous life, she had undergone endurance training. This was because in times of danger, every bit of endurance increased the chances of survival. The strength of this body was much stronger than when she first crossed over, but there was still a big gap between it and her previous life. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's sweaty eyes. Her fair and perfect face was flushed red from the 2 rounds of competition, making her look extremely sweet and alluring. Bailey Hongzhuang has gone through 2 rounds of battle in a row. She's exhausted. Now's the best time to go up and fight. The crowd's eyes lit up. They could judge Bailey Hongzhuang's current state from her expression. The later she went up, the higher their chances of success. Suddenly, another cultivator leaped up. He could not miss such a good opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the cultivator, who had appeared before her again. Her bright pitch-black eyes surged with battle intent, and the smile on her lips widened. She had not fought to her heart's content in a long time. Chapter 1065. Young Master, will young madam run out of stamina? Heimu probed. A woman's stamina could not be compared to a man's. Moreover, young madam had been fighting in close combat all this while. Her stamina was depleted very quickly. Bewitching's noble and handsome face rippled with a faint smile. Those dark and deep eyes were filled with a wise and steady light. She knows what she's doing. From the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang's battle, he already understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Since they had come to the Blood Qi Tower to train, then naturally, Bailey Hongzhuang could train however she wanted. His wife had always been intelligent. She clearly knew where her flaws were and how to improve her cultivation. On this point, if he was of the same age as Bailey Hongzhuang, he would feel ashamed of his inferiority. Bailey Hongzhuang's comprehension and understanding of her own abilities were extremely shocking. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's continuous outburst of battle power, the cultivators on the spectator stand had already changed from their initial denial to doubt, astonishment, and finally, disbelief and even numbness. When Bailey Hongzhuang fought continuously for the 5th round, the crowd realized that Bailey Hongzhuang, who had been as swift as lightning, had slowed down. Obviously, she was running out of stamina. After the 5th cultivator was defeated, the 6th cultivator hurriedly walked up, afraid that he would miss this excellent opportunity. However, the following situation did not proceed in the direction that the crowd had expected. Because after Bailey Hongzhuang realized that she was running out of stamina, she no longer used close combat. Instead, she started to use her elemental energy to collide. After Bailey Hongzhuang displayed her skills, the crowd then reacted. After fighting continuously for 5 rounds, Bailey Hongzhuang's elemental energy was not depleted at all. At the thought of this, everyone was shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. This woman's strength and endurance were truly abnormal. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Bewitching's perfect chin, which was as sharp as a knife, was slightly raised, and there was an arc of understanding. When Darkwood saw the smile on Bewitching's face, his heart was filled with joy. Ever since he met the young madam, the young master had been smiling a lot more. Of course, what he said was a sincere smile. He had been by the young master's side for many years, and knew the young master very well. Although the young lord would usually smile, that smile never reached his eyes. The young lord was only truly happy when he was with the young lord's wife. Now, it seemed that the young madam's strength was as abnormal as the young master's. Even though there was still a gap between the two of them, judging from the young madam's reckless momentum, her strength would probably increase very quickly. Thinking of this, Heimu was sincerely happy for the young master. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang victory. When the referee announced Bailey Hongzhuang's victory for the 10th time, the crowd's expression had completely changed. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang, could complete a 10-match winning streak on the second floor of the Blood Chi Tower. This was too abnormal. Bloody Rose's face turned pale. Bailey Hongzhuang had slapped her face with her strength. A 10-match winning streak was very rare in the history of the Blood Chi Tower. When she thought of what she had said before, she felt as if she had become a complete joke. Chapter 1066. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Bewitching's side and sat down. Her beautiful face was filled with an elegant smile. "I've been waiting for a long time." Bewitching smiled faintly. "No matter how long I've been waiting for you, it's not too long. Your speed is already very fast." Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. Now Bewitching's words were even more pleasant to listen to. "You must be very tired from the battle just now. Why don't you take a rest and come back later?" The low and sexy voice was filled with concern and pity. The strength of the practitioners on the second floor of the Blood Chi Tower was indeed much stronger than the practitioners on the first floor. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang would have to spend more energy to deal with them. The second floor of the Blood Chi Tower was also more difficult than the first floor. It was not suitable for her to challenge it in her current state. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Okay. She understood Bewitching's concern. She also knew that if she challenged the second floor in her current state, she would most likely fail. It was better to adjust her condition and come back later. Heimu immediately went to the betting area to collect their winnings. This time they really earned a lot. When the cultivators in the spectator stands saw Heimu's actions, they were envious. That was a huge sum of money. If I had known, I would have kept betting that Bailey Hongzhuang would win. How much would I have won then? With hindsight, what's the use of saying this now? I don't know where Bailey Hongzhuang and Heimu came from. Their strength is really abnormal. Everyone sighed. There were many strong practitioners in the Blood Chi Tower. But Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were obviously the most abnormal of the abnormal. Because the two of them were not ordinary young people. After Heimu returned, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching stood up and walked out of the Blood Chi Tower. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baisher's fur. Speaking of which, Baisher's fur was really good to the touch. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang cultivated in the Blood Chi Tower every day. After Heimu came to the Blood Chi Tower, he also followed Bewitching to improve his strength. Heimu's strength was not weak, but the Blood Chi Tower was also a good place for him to cultivate. However, the task of preparing meals every day had now fallen on Heimu. After learning that Bailey Hongzhuang had 3 gluttonous beasties, Heimu was also surprised. He had always known that a practitioner could contract with a contract beast, but he had never heard of several contract beasts contract. In his eyes, the Beichin and Heimu. In his eyes, the young master and Hei Beichin was not ordinary people. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, Heimu was undoubtedly the most obedient and the easiest to bully. Therefore, the 3 beasts were extremely happy with the arrival of Heimu. They let Heimu prepare delicious food for them all day long. Kangling College. After Xia Jiqing finished her cultivation, her beautiful face was covered with a touch of longing. It has been 3 months since I separated from Hongzhuang. Until now, Hongzhuang has not come back. We have not received any news. I don't know when she will come back. Hongzhuang went with Di Beichen to gain experience. I believe that Di Beichen will take good care of her. Don't worry, Zhang Yunfeng said slowly. Her white and bright face also showed a look of longing. After not seeing her for 3 months, she really missed Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 1067. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Zhang Yunfeng nodded slightly. Xia Jiqing and Bailey Hongzhuang had always been very good friends. Since the two came to Kangling College, their relationship had always been very good. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had been away for so long, it was normal for Xia Jiqing to miss Bailey Hongzhuang. Not to mention Xia Jiqing, she also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could come back as soon as possible. Even if she had some misunderstandings with Bailey Hongzhuang, after experiencing so many things, she only had admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. It shouldn't take long for her to come back. Zhang Yunfeng comforted. She should come back. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with a touch of worry. With Di Beichen's identity, Bailey Hongzhuang had become his wife. Her identity was naturally not ordinary. If Bailey Hongzhuang did not return to Kanglin College, then she really did not know what to do. Hearing the worry in Xia Jiqing's words, Zhang Yunfeng chuckled. You can rest assured, Hongzhuang said before that she will come back, so she will definitely come back. How can she not come back? Looking at Zhang Yunfeng's natural appearance, Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with a bright light. Right, I must be thinking too much. Zhang Yunfeng patted Xia Jiqing's shoulder and smiled. Yes, you must be thinking too much. Xia Jiqing showed a smile. From the first time she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she and Bailey Hongzhuang were very congenial. The time they spent together was not very long, but she regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as a real sister. She only hoped that they could continue to cultivate together in the future. At the thought of this, Xia Jiqing's expression showed a trace of determination. She must work hard to close the distance between her and Bailey Hongzhuang. Only in this way could they cultivate together in the future and progress together. Otherwise, when the gap between them was too big, even if Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to improve together with her, she could only be a burden. Yunfeng, I'm going to cultivate. Xia Jiqing's lips curved into a bright smile, and she said firmly. Looking at the brilliance on Xia Jiqing's pretty face, Zhang Yunfeng couldn't help but sigh. Since Bailey Hongzhuang left, Xia Jiqing had been particularly diligent in her cultivation. It was really like what Bailey Hongzhuang said when she left. She was constantly working hard, just waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to see her progress. Speaking of which, Xia Jiqing's crazy cultivation also stimulated another person. That was Bai Junyu. Everyone knew that Bai Junyu liked Xia Jiqing. However, although Bai Junyu was usually very talkative, he was shy in front of Xia Jiqing. He couldn't confess at all. Although everyone was anxious for Bai Junyu, they couldn't help it. After all, this kind of thing needed to be said by the person involved. They could only help to create an opportunity for Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing to be together. When Bai Junyu saw Xia Jiqing cultivating so hard, he naturally didn't dare to fall behind. After all, if his cultivation was surpassed by Xia Jiqing, then he wouldn't be qualified to catch up with Xia Jiqing. Therefore, everyone only saw that Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing were both desperately cultivating. The degree of hard work made people ashamed. Lu Huayan and the two mentors were also very surprised when they saw Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing cultivating so hard. But they were more happy. This time, the inter-school competition made them have too many emotions and understand the gap between the students. Chapter 1068. Bailey Hongzhuang had made a name for herself in the Bloodground Abyss. She had challenged 10 cultivators in the first 3 levels of the Blood Qi Tower, and won 10 consecutive victories. Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang, there were very few people who could achieve such a feat. Not only that, but Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance and temperament were also superb, which was one of the reasons why she was famous. Since Bewitching stood up for Bailey Hongzhuang on the 2nd level of the Blood Qi Tower, everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were a celestial couple, which was really enviable. When the two of them first came to the Bloodground Abyss, many men and women wanted to provoke Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. But after being taught a lesson by the two of them, they gradually gave up. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was already very strong in the Blood Qi Tower. Not to mention Bewitching's strength was even more unfathomable. It was really not easy to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. So many cultivators chose to give up. It was like this in the Bloodground Abyss. If one did not show absolute strength, everyone would think that one was easy to bully. But when one showed tyrannical strength, no one would dare to find trouble with them. The law of the jungle was the rule of survival in the Bloodground Abyss. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was also rapidly improving. Here, she did not lack elixirs, opponents, and demonic beast meat to nourish her. It was really a good opportunity to improve her strength. The trial of the Blood Qi Tower was just like what Bewitching had told Bailey Hongzhuang. The higher the level, the more difficult it was to pass the trial. Moreover, every 3 levels increased by a level. Bailey Hongzhuang fought with the bronze men in the first 3 rounds, but the number of bronze men doubled with each level, and it became more and more difficult for her to deal with them. However, as she continued to fight with the bronze men, her close combat ability continued to improve. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't just want to pass the trial. She wanted to use the trial to improve her fighting strength. In the beginning, Bailey Hongzhuang had to be injured to pass the trial. Later on, she was able to defeat all the bronze men without being injured. She could feel that her combat experience had increased. Bewitching also agreed with Bailey Hongzhuang's method of training. Compared to finding an opponent in the blood refining tower, it was better to treat this trial as an opponent, because the trial's level was higher and the rewards were greater. When Darkwood saw how persistent Bailey Hongzhuang was in her cultivation, he couldn't help but sigh. After following the young master for this period of time, he increasingly realized that the young master and young madam were a match made in heaven. This was because the young madam's determination and tenacity were exactly the same as the young master's. It was truly admirable. However, the only thing that made Darkwood a little helpless was the young madam's contract beasts. These 3 beasts had extraordinary appetites. Now he had become a regular in the restaurant. He prepared meals for the young master, young madam, and the 3 beasts every day. After he realized that these 3 beasts had great appetites, he increased the amount of food he bought every day. In the end, he helplessly realized that the more he bought, the more the 3 beasts ate. Their small bodies were simply bottomless pits. No matter how much food they ate, they could eat it all. Most importantly, these 3 beasties loved to pester him on a daily basis, constantly giving him suggestions on what delicious food to buy today. Chapter 1069. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the 4th level of the trial, she immediately realized that the difficulty of the trial had increased by a lot. Not only that, the trial of the Blood Chi Tower was completely based on the strength of each cultivator. The stronger one was, the more difficult the trial would be. After knowing this, Bailey Hongzhuang gradually understood why the Blood Chi Tower was only suitable for cultivators of the Red Realm. This was because the stronger one was, the more difficult it would be to pass the trial after the difficulty had doubled. If the cultivator's cultivation was too low, they would not even be able to pass the first 3 rounds of the trial. They would not even have the chance to touch the later stages of the trial. During this period, Bailey Hongzhuang was also completely exhausted by the trial. She was like a cockroach that could not be killed. If she failed once, she would try a second time. If the second time did not work, she would try a third time. Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to be tireless and never knew what discouragement was. She was always full of energy and drive. As Bailey Hongzhuang concentrated on the trial, Bewitching and Heimu were also cultivating in the Bloodground Abyss. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the inn every day, Bewitching and Heimu had already returned. Therefore, she did not know what kind of training ground was at the back of the Bloodground Abyss. However, from Heimu's faint tiredness, she knew that the training ground was not simple. Otherwise, with Heimu's strength, he would not be so tired. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang had already stayed in the Bloodground Abyss for 3 months. Her strength had also increased to the 8th level of the Red Realm. This improvement was undoubtedly very shocking. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was talented, if she had not worked so hard during this period of time, she would not have been able to increase 4 levels in one go. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher were very happy after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's rapid improvement. However, they no longer only remembered to eat every day. After all, they were their master's contracted beasts. Now that their master's strength had increased so much, they couldn't continue to slack off. Baisher's feeling was the most obvious. It had finally reached the 5th level of the Red Realm and caught up with its master. But now it was left behind by its master. It could not be a useless contract beast. Not only her own progress, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt that Bewitching and Heimu's strength was also improving. To them, the Bloodground Abyss was truly an excellent place. Young master, the selection is about to begin. We can't stay in the Bloodground Abyss any longer. Heimu frowned. His fair and handsome face was filled with worry. Hearing this, Bewitching's handsome face flashed with a trace of heaviness and gloom. Hongzhuang's trial is not over yet. Young madam has already reached the 8th level. You've already delayed quite a bit of time for young madam's training. But Tiangang sect is also a part of this selection competition. The sect master is not here, so this matter is left to the young master. The sect has urged us several times. If we don't go back, I'm afraid there will be changes. Heimu looked troubled. He understood that the young master had insisted on staying in the blood-ground abyss to allow his wife to improve her strength. All this was as the young master had expected. His wife's progress was very fast, but it was too late now. Chapter 1070. However, Bewitching and Heimu did not notice that outside the door, a furry ball quietly rolled by. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the house, she saw the three beasties sitting in a row on the table, one hand supporting their cheeks as they waited for her. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang return, the three beasties' gazes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and a glimmer of light flashed through her deep eyes. She moved a chair and sat directly in front of the three beasties. "What's the matter? Speak." Once she saw the posture of these three beasties, she knew that something must have happened to them. After being together for so long, she understood the three beasties very well. "Master, when I went to look for Heimu earlier, I heard the conversation between Heimu and Bewitching. It seems that Tiangang sect has something that requires Bewitching to return. However, Bewitching has not returned because of your trial. Now Tiangang sect's urging is getting more and more urgent." As she spoke, Xiaohei's gaze could not help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was also slightly stunned for a moment. She did not know that there was such a thing. Bewitching did not tell her, and she did not notice that there was anything wrong. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little vexed. During this period of time, she had put all her energy into the trial and neglected so many things. Heimu had always stood on Bewitching and her side. Since Heimu said so, the matter at Tiangang sect must be very urgent. Bewitching had been accompanying her here for her trial. She actually did not notice that Bewitching had done so many things for her. Although her trial was important, Tiangang sect's matter was obviously more important. Besides, the trial had always been here. Even if she came back a few days later to participate in the trial, there was nothing wrong with it. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and walked towards the house next door. Bewitching had done so many things for her. She couldn't let Bewitching continue to do so for her. For Bewitching, Tiangang Zone was a very meaningful existence. Bewitching had always admired and respected the most. The sect master handed over Tiangang sect to Bewitching because he trusted Bewitching. If Bewitching had any regrets because of her, that would be the last thing she wanted. Bewitching was devoted to her, and she also wanted Bewitching to be happy. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang leave without saying a word, the three beasties quickly jumped off the table and followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang. Knock knock. Bailey Hongzhuang knocked on the door, and Bewitching quickly opened the door. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching's perfect and gentle face also revealed a refined and handsome smile. "Wife, you're back." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and walked into the house. However, just as the three beasties were about to follow in, they found that the door was closed. The three of them were blocked outside just like that. Xiaohei stared at the closed door with wide eyes. "We're blocked outside the house." Xiaobai was also very puzzled. They usually followed behind Master. Why did Master leave them outside the door today? Did we do something to upset Master? Chapter 1071. Xiaohei, Xiaobai and Baishir looked at each other. They really didn't know how to answer Baishir's question. After thinking for a while, Xiaobai reluctantly admitted, "It's possible." When they were with Master, they were afraid that Master would despise them, so they ate in a more refined manner. Ever since Heimu came, they were unrestrained. Anyway, Heimu was the easiest to deal with, and was obedient. Was this the price of being willful? However, the three little fellows had obviously guessed wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts were very simple. She wanted to communicate with Bewitching properly. Now that their relationship had warmed up, Bewitching really liked holding her in his arms. At this time, it would be fine if it was just the two of them, but the three little beasts were watching from behind. This was really a little embarrassing. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the house, Di Beichen also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. What was his wife thinking? Just as Di Beichen was about to ask, a fragrant wind suddenly blew over. Bailey Hongzhuang hugged him. Lowering his head to look at the person in his arms, Di Beichen's gaze softened. However, there was a trace of nervousness in his deep and charming eyes. Wife, what happened? Di Beichen wrapped his arms around Bailey Hongzhuang's slender waist. His deep and magnetic voice was filled with worry. Could it be that his wife had been wronged outside today? Why are you so good to me? Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face was pressed against Di Beichen's chest. Her voice was muffled, a little depressed, and a little pained. Ever since she got together with Di Beichen had always been considerate of her and accommodated her. No matter when or where, Di Beichen was always meticulous with her. He helped her raise her cultivation level and helped her understand the mystery of her birth. In comparison, she did not treat Di Beichen as well. Hearing this, the corners of Di Beichen's mouth revealed a light smile, but his eyes became even more gentle and doting. You came here just to ask me why I'm so nice to you? Bailey Hongzhuang just hugged Di Beichen tightly and did not answer. You are my wife, the only woman that I, Di Beichen, love in my life. If I don't treat you well, who should I treat well? Di Beichen's smile was light, but his dark eyes were full of deep affection. Bailey Hongzhuang was his treasure, and he wanted to treat her well all the time. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were slightly moist. She felt a little stifled, but deep in her eyes, there was a smile that came from the bottom of her heart. She was so lucky to meet him in the vast sea of people, fall in love with him, and become the love of his heart. It was only now that she understood how Di Beichen felt when he said that he was very grateful to Li Chengqian. She was also grateful to Li Chengqian now. If it were not for Li Chengqian, they might not have interacted so much, and she would have missed such a perfect man. Di Beichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms only lowered her head and did not speak. He could not help but bend down to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Wife, what's wrong? However, when Di Beichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were vaguely moist, his heart ached. Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth and looked up at Di Beichen. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to speak, Di Beichen covered her red lips with his. She tossed and turned. Chapter 1072. When Di Beichen let go of Bailey Hongzhuang's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were blurred. A pair of watery eyes stared at Di Beichen, making Di Beichen's heart melt into water. Di Beichen directly carried Bailey Hongzhuang to the side and sat down, while Bailey Hongzhuang also sat on Di Beichen's lap. Quietly hugging Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen's handsome and gentle face rippled with a light and soft smile. Wife, don't breathe and think nonsense in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang leaned on Di Beichen's chest and nodded slightly. When the blurred eyes returned to clarity, Bailey Hongzhuang sat up straight, and her beautiful face was tinged with a trace of seriousness. Tiangang sect has something to ask you to go back? Di Beichen's dark and deep handsome eyes flashed with a faint light. You know, at this moment, Di Beichen understood why Hongzhuang had such a reaction just now. Since Tiangang sect has something urgent to ask you to go back, then let's go back first. We can come back for this trial any time. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes stared at Di Beichen, her beautiful face showing some helplessness. I know you are good to me, and I don't want to affect your business because of me. At first, Di Beichen left Tiangang sect and came to Fengbo country because he had no choice. Now that Di Beichen's leg disease has been cured, he should have returned to Tiangang sect long ago. Just because he wanted to be by her side, Di Beichen had never gone back. Although she had never heard any news about Tiangang sect from Di Beichen and He Mu, she also knew that as the young lord of Tiangang sect, Di Beichen had been outside for a long time without returning, which would definitely cause a lot of dissatisfaction. This time, the Tiangang sect does have something for me to return to, but I hope that you can complete the trial. Once you get the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower, it will be of great help to you. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. There was a flicker of light in his deep eyes, but it was too obscure for Bailey Hongzhuang to see it clearly. It's okay. I'll have a chance in the future too. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. She naturally wanted to obtain the inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower, but the last level of the trial was too difficult to break through. Although the first 8 levels were difficult, she was able to overcome them. However, facing the 9th level of the trial, she felt powerless. However, she still believed that she would be able to pass. For them now, it was obvious that Bewitching's return to Tiangang sect was the most important thing. As for other things, they could put them aside for the time being. It wouldn't be too late to return to the Bloodground Abyss after everything was done. After all, she was also full of curiosity about the other training ground in the Bloodground Abyss. She believed that she would definitely return to Tiangang sect in the future. Don't you want to know why I'm returning to Tiangang sect this time? Bewitching asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and blinked. If you want to tell me, I'm naturally willing to listen. The selection competition that happens once every 5 years is about to begin. Bewitching's eyes were distant and deep, and his handsome face revealed a trace of complexity. Selection competition? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little puzzled. The internal selection competition of Tiangang sect? Bewitching shook his head slightly. Every sect needs fresh blood. Therefore, the selection competition that happens once every 5 years is a competition that every sect specially prepares to recruit young cultivators. Chapter 1073. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with wisdom. A sect's recruitment of new blood had always been a grand affair. Just a sect's recruitment of disciples was already a grand occasion. Furthermore, according to Bewitching's words, this was a joint recruitment of all the sections. One could imagine the scale of this event. It could be called a grand occasion in the Shengxian continent. That's right. Bewitching nodded. Every time a sect recruits a disciple, it's always very eye-catching. Any cultivator with strength would want to give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Bewitching. You hope that I can complete the trial for the selection competition? She immediately understood. If all the outstanding cultivators in the Shengxian continent were to gather, then the competition in this selection competition would be extremely fierce. If one wanted to stand out, they would undoubtedly have to be the best of the younger generation. Bewitching held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. According to my selfishness, I hope that you can directly enter the Tiangang sect with me. Following Bewitching's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression became somewhat complicated. According to my understanding, the Tiangang sect has never directly recruited disciples. The Tiangang sect was famous in the Shengxian continent. To be able to become a disciple of the Tiangang sect was the dream of many cultivators. Once one became a disciple of the Tiangang sect, it was no different from a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. It could be said to bring honor to one's ancestors. Not only that, the cultivation resources in the Tiangang sect were far more abundant than outside. Cultivating in the Tiangang sect would allow one's strength to rise much faster than outside. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally wanted to go to the Tiangang sect, not only because of the abundant cultivation resources, but also because Bewitching was the young sect master of the Tiangang sect. As long as she could stay in the Tiangang sect with Bewitching, then many problems would be solved. Those who wanted to secretly scheme would have no chance to take advantage of it. However, she was even more aware that once she was directly arranged by Bewitching to become a disciple of the Tiangang sect, it would undoubtedly attract the criticism of everyone. Those cultivators who coveted Bewitching's position as the young master would definitely take this opportunity to attack Bewitching, and Bewitching, as the young master of Tiangang sect, would also end up with the title of covering up for his wife, unable to distinguish right from wrong. Most importantly, Han Xiling was also there. In front of her love rival, she had her own dignity. What she wanted was to stand upright in front of Bewitching and not let anyone have a chance to attack her. More importantly, she wanted to prove to Han Xiling that she, Bailey Hongzhuang, was the right person for Bewitching. Therefore, she couldn't just go in like this. She didn't want to leave such a topic of discussion when she confronted Han Xiling in the future. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Bewitching had already understood Bailey Hongzhuang's plan. In fact, from the beginning, he had already guessed that Bailey Hongzhuang would make such a decision. He couldn't be more clear about his wife's temperament. She was proud, especially her dignity, which couldn't be trampled on. Not only that, she was so persistent about their feelings for each other that she wouldn't let anyone have a chance to attack her. This was his wife Bewitching. Perhaps she was a little stubborn, but it was precisely because of this stubbornness that made people feel even more heartache and love her deeply. It was precisely because of this that he hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could obtain the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength would increase, and her safety would also increase a lot. To him, the most important thing was Bailey Hongzhuang's safety. Chapter 1074. You want to participate in this year's selection? Bewitching stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, his dark eyes flashing with a complicated light. Although it was a question, Bewitching's tone was firm. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her phoenix eyes and stared at Bewitching. She nodded slightly. I want to participate. Wife, you know that I'm not afraid of others talking behind my back. I only hope that you can safely stay by my side. Bewitching's voice was deep and magnetic. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a sincere gaze. Over the years he had been through a lot. He didn't care about ordinary words. Bailey Hongzhuang wrapped her arms around Bewitching's neck. I understand, but I want to stand by your side. The next time I see Han Xiling, I will defeat her. Her deep and beautiful eyes were filled with a firm and decisive light. The last time Han Xiling saw her, she still remembered clearly the disdain she showed. No matter how proud Han Xiling was, her pride wasn't any less than Han Xiling's. The battle between her and Han Xiling would eventually come to an end. During this period of time, Han Xiling had done so many things behind her back. She clearly remembered it all. She had never been a generous person, especially to her enemies. The next time they met, she would crush Han Xiling's pride. Bewitching nodded slightly. He understood Bailey Hongzhuang's determination. Therefore, he didn't try to persuade her anymore. In fact, he also understood that participating in the selection was a good experience for Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang obtained good results in the selection, then she would enter everyone's eyes. Because the selection had always been important, the first place of each selection would become famous in the Shengxian continent and become the target of all the sections. This choice was actually not wrong. No matter what kind of results Bailey Hongzhuang obtains, as long as she can legitimately enter Tiangong Zone, it is also a good thing. He didn't care about other people's attacks on him, but Tiangong sect was also not peaceful. What he didn't want to see the most was Bailey Hongzhuang being attacked. If that happened, his heart would ache. I support your decision. Bewitching smiled faintly. No matter what Bailey Hongzhuang did, he would support her. Thank you, Bewitching. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes shone with a trace of emotion. This was her persistence. And even more fortunately, Bewitching had always supported her. There's no need for thanks between you and me. Bewitching rubbed Bailey Hongzhuang's soft hand, but his eyes were filled with seriousness and seriousness. Wife, regarding the Lan family, I found some news. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly froze. Her beautiful face also had a moment of stagnation. What news? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, but there was a trace of uncontrollable nervousness in the depths of her eyes. She had always been curious about her background, especially when she found out that her biological parents were forced to leave her in front of the general's estate. She was even more worried about her parents' safety. However, with the platform she had touched, it was simply not enough for her to have the opportunity to understand the Lan family. The Lan family was the true colossus of the Shengxian continent. Their foundation was stable and complicated. It was extremely difficult to understand them. The current her had yet to reach that level. Chapter 1075. Hearing Bewitching's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. So you're saying that as long as I drip my blood on this jade pendant, I'll know if I'm a descendant of the Lan family? Bailey Hongzhuang took out the jade pendant. Her pretty face was filled with astonishment. She didn't think that the Lan family would have such a miraculous method. It seems that the Lan family really didn't have a problem with their bloodline. Bewitching nodded. That's right. You can give it a try. All right, I'll give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She placed the jade pendant on the table and took out a sharp blade. She had bought this sharp blade when she had obtained the parchment scroll. Now that she had it in her hands, it would occasionally be of use. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's curious expression, Di Beichen's deep, handsome eyes were filled with seriousness and depth. After asking around, he had a good understanding of the Lan family's secrets. However, this secret was far too heavy. If possible, he hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't really a descendant of the Lan family. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang would have to bear too many burdens. When he thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's humiliated childhood, he found it hard to imagine how such a petite girl would bear all the burden of the Lan family's grievances. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't notice Di Beichen's expression. She was completely focused on the jade pendant. At this point, other than Qin Yayan's diary and this jade pendant, there was no other evidence to prove her identity. Therefore, she really wanted to know who her biological parents were. If she really was a descendant of the Lan family, then everything would become clear. The sharp blade cut Bailey Hongzhuang's finger, and a drop of blood immediately appeared. However, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even frown. She immediately dripped the drop of blood onto the jade pendant. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes fell upon the jade pendant. They both wanted to know the final result. The jade pendant was snow white and almost transparent. It was exquisite and soft to the touch. Bailey Hongzhuang knew at first glance that this jade pendant was something good. However, she didn't expect it to have such an effect. Not long after the drop of blood had dripped onto the jade pendant, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen realized that the drop of blood had gradually seeped into the jade pendant. The originally sparkling and translucent jade pendant was stained red. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that Di Beichen's judgment was right from the start. This jade pendant really was the Lan family's keepsake, and she really was a descendant of the Lan family. Di Beichen's expression also changed. He didn't expect all of this to be true. Bailey Hongzhuang picked up the jade pendant. The change of this jade pendant was really magical. After it was stained with a little blood, she found that gradually, the blood was also fading, and eventually it became the original white color. However, that drop of blood had turned into a bright red mark on the jade pendant, adding a trace of uniqueness. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around. Her exquisite and perfect face revealed a trace of emotion. It seems that I really am a member of the Lan family. In that case, Lan Yunxiao is my father. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had already confirmed her identity. Aside from this, there was no other possibility. Di Beichen nodded slightly with a complicated expression. It seems that you really are a member of the Lan family. Chapter 1076. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious about her identity. Now that she had confirmed it, she was even more curious about the Lan family. She wanted to know why Lan Yunxiao and the Lan family had turned against each other, and why the Lan family had chased after them. She knew that everything would be very heavy. But no matter how heavy the truth was, she had to find out. Because that was what she had to bear. Di Beichen sank into silence. When he first learned of this news, even his heart was hard to conceal. He was afraid that after Hongzhuang learned of this, Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Di Beichen. When she saw the obscure light in Di Beichen's eyes, her expression changed. Beichen, there are some things that I was born to bear. It's destined that I can't escape from them. I know that something very serious must have happened when father took us away from the Lan family. No matter how hard it is to accept, I can bear it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was heavy. After being with Di Beichen for so long, she had long developed a tacit understanding with him. Just by looking at Di Beichen's expression, she could guess some things. She was afraid that the reason behind this was more complicated than she thought, and more difficult to accept. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's resolute expression, Di Beichen muttered to himself for a moment before nodding. Hongzhuang, I will tell you everything, but you must be mentally prepared. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her voice gentle and calm. I'll be fine. Back then, the Lan family's patriarch, Lan Yangqiu, had two sons. The eldest, Lan Jingquang, had outstanding strength and a steady but treacherous personality. Lan Yunxiao was the youngest son that Lan Yangqiu had always been proud of. He had an extraordinary bearing and outstanding talent. Although Lan Jingquang's strength wasn't bad, he wasn't as well liked as Lan Yunxiao. Not only that, Lan Yunxiao was already Lan Yangxia's favorite successor, and the entire Lan family recognized him as the young master. Under these circumstances, Lan Jingquang was naturally unwilling to accept it. However, the entire family supported Lan Yunxiao, so he could only endure it. Later on, Lan Jingquang married Yu Manlan, the direct descendant daughter of the Yu family, and gave birth to Lan Qingyan. And your father, Lan Yunxiao, married your mother, Mu Lingbing. Mu Lingbing didn't come from an illustrious family like Yu Manlan, but she was also an outstanding cultivator. She was an outstanding disciple of Sun Moon Palace, and she gave birth to you. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly listened to Bewitching's narration. She had already guessed that what happened to her parents must have something to do with Lan Jingquang. However, she couldn't figure out what kind of method they used to deal with her. With Lan Yunxiao's reputation in the Lan family, it was reasonable to say that if something happened, everyone should stand on his side and support him. What kind of method did Lan Jingquang use to hurt her parents and make the entire family stand on his side, and her parents become enemies with the entire Lan family? The more Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it, the more complicated it all became. Wife, do you still remember your dantian shattering? Bewitching suddenly asked. Chapter 1077. Everyone was only curious about this matter in private. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that the possibility was not small. However, no one dared to confirm it. If it's true, then it's too terrifying. Back then, the emperor fell into the cycle of reincarnation because of the goddess. If we're facing such a storm because of the goddess, then wouldn't we have a war with the god realm? Why is that? Wuxia asked in puzzlement. Are you stupid? The woman looked at him helplessly. The goddess is now married to the emperor. She is now our infernal queen. This means that the goddess also plans to be with the emperor. If the celestial realm is unwilling, the emperor will not let his wife go. Then, wouldn't a war be inevitable? Previously, because of the matter with the Fourth Highness, the flames of war had just been extinguished. I never expected that we would have to face the celestial realm again. The woman sighed faintly. Once they fought, it would be inevitable that people would be plunged into misery and suffering. If that's really the case, then the goddess is a femme fatale. Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance surfaced in Wuxia's mind. Thinking about it carefully, she really had the qualifications to be a femme fatale. With such a beautiful face, how many men would be willing to give up everything for her? Previously, she felt that the fact that she and Kitsune could wait for the infernal emperor for so many years, no matter how she looked at it, Bailey Hongzhuang would be dealt a blow by this relationship. This was because how long had she been with the infernal emperor? It was at most a few decades. How could it be compared to a relationship that had lasted more than 100 years? Furthermore, she came from a small place. No matter how she looked at it, she was not worthy of the emperor. This inferiority complex was unavoidable, but there was no such thing in her. It was as though she had never felt inferior before. It was as though all these emotions did not belong to her. She was so confident that it made them feel ashamed. How can a person from a lower plane have such powerful alchemy skills? Have you forgotten that the goddess is the #1 alchemist in the celestial realm? The woman's words woke everyone up. The infernal queen's alchemy skills were so exquisite that it shocked them. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the infernal queen to have such exquisite alchemy skills. Even if she was a genius, it was impossible for her to understand the infernal realm's alchemy skills in such a short period of time. However, if she was the goddess, then everything could be explained. Whether it was the divine world or the devil world, everyone was very clear about the goddess' alchemy skills. She was extremely outstanding. No matter whether it was her strength or alchemy skills, she was an existence that others could only look up to. Back then, when they found out that the demon emperor, who had never been attracted to women, had fallen in love with the goddess, their first reaction wasn't that the two of them weren't compatible at all. Instead, they felt that the two of them were too compatible. This was clearly an alliance between the strong and the strong. Why was it that after so many years, No woman could move the Devil Emperor's heart, because those women were not worthy at all. The goddess was the most outstanding woman in the entire celestial realm. For so many years, she had been pure and had few desires. Yet, she had fallen in love with their infernal emperor. Everyone felt that this was a good combination. It was just that no one expected such a thing to happen. Wuxia, who originally thought that it was impossible, could no longer refute. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang always so confident when she saw them? Why did Kitsune choose to give up after chatting with her once? Chapter 1078. Then Lan Qingyan successfully integrated with the Rainbow Pearl? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Bewitching. She had already heard from Bewitching that Lan Qingyan was the representative of the Lan family. Now Lan Qingyan was also one of the most outstanding cultivators in the entire Xingqian continent. According to this, she was almost certain of this result. However, she instinctively hoped that Lan Qingyan did not succeed in the integration. This truth was much more tragic than any of the truths she had imagined before, and it was impossible for her to accept. Bewitching looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. From Bailey Hongzhuang's fluctuating gaze, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was not calm, just like how he found it hard to accept when he first found out about this truth. Moreover, this was something that Bailey Hongzhuang had to bear since she was born. That's right, Bewitching said slowly. Yu Manlin's medical skills are also very good. However, this matter seemed to be the result of Yu Manlin's discussion with the Yu family. The Yu family was also involved in the plot to kill you. At that time, the Yu family had a godly doctor living in the Lan family. However, everyone in the Lan family only treated it as a visit and did not take it to heart. Presumably, that person was here to help Lan Qingyan integrate with the Rainbow Pearl. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart sank. Her nails were already deeply embedded in her palms. Dark red blood gradually flowed out and crescent-shaped marks appeared on her palms. However, in the face of such pain, Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to feel it. This was because the pain in her heart was far more intense than the pain in her hands. According to the information I received, Lan Qingyan also did not succeed in the integration. Other than a specific successor, no one else's Dantian could integrate with the Rainbow Pearl. Although the Yu family's medical skills are top-notch, they did not have a way to help Lan Qingyan integrate with the Rainbow Pearl. They only used a special method to integrate the Rainbow Pearl into Lan Qingyan's body. Even so, Lan Qingyan's cultivation talent is still amazing. It's not hard to imagine how great your cultivation talent would be with your Rainbow Dantian. Bewitching couldn't hide the pain in his eyes. He had never thought that his beloved wife would suffer all this. Originally, she was supposed to be the genius young miss of the Lan family, an outstanding figure among the young cultivators of the entire Xingqian continent. She should have lived a life of luxury since she was young, enjoying the love of her family and the admiring gazes of young cultivators. However, because of this, Bailey Hongzhuang became a trash that everyone despised and ridiculed. She grew up in humiliation. Her status was no different from falling from heaven to hell. Wife Yu, Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's pale little face. He just wanted to hold Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms. She looked so fragile, as if she could faint at any time. If he could, he really hoped that he could bear all of this in place of Bailey Hongzhuang. However, in the face of the past, he couldn't do anything. Compared to what Bailey Hongzhuang was going through at the moment, his words of comfort had no effect. Because, in this kind of situation, other than the person involved who could understand the pain she was going through, no one else could. Chapter 1079. Blood gradually flowed from her palms, spreading along her fingers. However, the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's clenched hands did not loosen at all. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang like this, Bewitching understood that the most important thing now was to tell Bailey Hongzhuang everything. The reason why he wanted Hongzhuang to obtain the inheritance was also because of Bailey Hongzhuang's background. This kind of enmity was as deep as the ocean. If she didn't take revenge, Hongzhuang wouldn't be happy for the rest of her life. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't accept the news. Lan Yunxiao was furious and directly attacked Lan Jing. As for Mu Lingbing, She was on the verge of collapse when she saw you on the verge of death in swaddling clothes. The entire Lan family was shaken because of this. No one dared to believe that Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan would do such a thing. The Lan family head, Lan Yangxiu, was furious and wanted to punish Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan. However, Lan Yunxiao demanded that they die. Unfortunately, the Yu family also came out to take a look. This was the plan that the Yu family and Lan Jingquang had discussed for a long time. They had already prepared everything. Although the Lan family's cultivators knew that Lan Jingquang had wronged you, Lan Qingyan had already obtained the power of the Rainbow Pearl. The Lan family couldn't give up on the inheritance. Lan Yunxiao demanded an eye for an eye and destroyed Lan Qingyan's dantian. The entire family stopped Lan Yunxiao, who then went on a killing spree and completely broke off relations with the Lan family. Lan Yunxiao's strength was outstanding in the entire Lan family. At that time, the Lan family also lost a group of cultivators. However, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were no match for them. Later on, although Lan Yangqiu urged Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing to stay, they couldn't stay any longer. Bailey Hongzhuang bit her lip. She could imagine how tragic that scene was. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had always treated her like a treasure in their palms, treasuring her at all times. Her father was an extraordinary figure, with an illustrious reputation in the entire Xingxian continent. Her mother was a rare beauty with a resounding reputation. As an outstanding disciple of the Sun Moon Palace, although she didn't have an illustrious family background, she was still an outstanding woman. When they saw their daughter, who was originally blessed by the ancestors of the Lan family, being treated in such a manner, and being on the verge of death, their hearts collapsed, and the hatred that seeped into their bones grew even stronger. Especially Lan Yunxiao. He was once the Lan family's family head, and was the center of attention. However, after such a thing happened, he couldn't even get justice for his daughter. What kind of irony was this? She could understand why Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had broken off all relations with the Lan family at the cost of their lives. If it wasn't for his existence, they would have killed Lan Jingquang and the others even if they had to risk their lives. However, they had to take her away because she was in was. What kind forbearance, the feeling falling from heaven to hell? And all of this was because of Lan Jingquang's family. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a burst of pain in her heart. She simply couldn't imagine the scene back then. The burning desire in her chest almost burned her to ashes. Chapter 1080. After Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing took you away, you were too young and your dantian was destroyed. This kind of injury was too serious for you to bear. Thus, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing ran all over the place to save you. In the entire Xingxian continent, the Yu family is the most skilled in medicine. At that time, your parents could only swallow their anger and ask the Yu family for help when you were on the verge of death. With every sentence Bewitching spoke, the unbearable feeling in his heart intensified. Compared to the treatment Bailey Hongzhuang received at the general's estate, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing practically treated Bailey Hongzhuang as their lives. They clearly knew that the Yu family was involved in this matter, but for the sake of Bailey Hongzhuang, they were willing to throw away their dignity just so that Bailey Hongzhuang could live. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes gradually became moist. Lan Yunxiao, what kind of proud man was he? He actually begged his enemies to lend a helping hand for her sake. From what the Yu family had done to her, it was clear how vicious they were. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had probably suffered all kinds of humiliation when they asked for help. The Yu family didn't agree. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly spoke, her low and cold voice filled with forbearance and resentment. This kind of result was almost certain. If the Yu family really wanted to treat her, they would have done so when they obtained the Rainbow Pearl. Why would they wait until later? Bewitching nodded. The Yu family refused. Not only that, they began to hunt down your family to eliminate the root of the problem. You should know what happened after that. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her eyes. Her long and curly eyelashes were like palm leaf fans, leaving a shadow on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Her delicate face did not reveal any expression, but Bewitching could feel the murderous aura emanating from Bailey Hongzhuang. It was a murderous aura that was so dense that it was shocking. Even he could not help but be moved when he sensed this murderous aura. From this, one could see how much Bailey Hongzhuang hated Lan Jingquang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang understood that it was precisely because of the Yu clan's cultivators that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had been fleeing for their lives. In the end, they could only leave her at the entrance of the general's estate. Then are my parents still alive? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice trembled. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had given up everything for her. Right now, what she wanted to know the most was whether they were still alive, and whether they would have a chance to meet again. Di Beichen's face darkened. I'm not sure about that either. However, I got a clue that they might have been locked up by the Yu clan. The Yu clan? Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows, a trace of worry on her face. If they've fallen into the Yu clan's hands, they will definitely eliminate them completely. Di Beichen shook his head slightly. According to the information I received, Lan Jingquang would occasionally visit the Yu clan. I think it's very likely that he went there to mock Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. After all, he was suppressed by Lan Yunxiao for so many years. When he finally made a comeback, he would want to show off his achievements. How can you be so sure? Bailey Hongzhuang's brows were still tightly knitted. Although this was a possibility, it was not enough to confirm it. Chapter 1081. Following Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. She immediately understood. So Lan Jingquang has been humiliating my parents all these years. Bailey Hongzhuang became even more furious. She didn't expect Lan Jingquang to be so despicable as to do such a thing. She could imagine that if Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had fallen into Lan Jingquang's hands, Lan Jingquang would definitely humiliate and torture them in every possible way. This kind of despicable and treacherous fellow usually pretended to be kind, but behind the scenes, he did all sorts of evil things. It was obvious how sinister his heart was. Di Beichen hugged Bailey Hongzhuang tightly. He had been afraid that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't be able to accept the truth. No one would be able to accept this kind of thing in a short period of time, especially for children like them, who thought they had been abandoned. When Bailey Hongzhuang found out that her parents had done so under such helpless circumstances, one could imagine the fluctuations in her heart. Wife, no matter what, at least this proves that your parents are still alive. Di Beichen's voice was gentle and carried a calming comfort. At this time, he couldn't do anything other than comfort her. Feeling Di Beichen's warm embrace, the agitated Bailey Hongzhuang calmed down a little. Di Beichen always had the power to make her feel at ease. That's right, you're right. At least they're still alive. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This could be considered a fortune amidst misfortune. As long as they were still alive, they would be able to meet again one day. Beichen, do we have a way to save my parents? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen. She couldn't accept the fact that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were suffering in the Yu clan. Every day of that kind of torture was torture, let alone the fact that they had been trapped in the Yu clan for so many years. Di Beichen placed his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, his obsidian-like eyes gazing at Bailey Hongzhuang. Wife, I will do my best. In reality, he had wanted to save Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing ever since he had confirmed this news. However, the Yu clan had done this in secret. Lan Jingquang naturally knew that if this matter was discovered, he would have to bear the consequences. Very serious. Therefore, he and the Yu clan had sealed the news very tightly. He had spent a tremendous amount of effort just to obtain this information. He had even used some of his secret connections and many people to invite him over. Under these circumstances, he had succeeded in understanding more. However, it was too difficult to save Lan Yunxiao and Lan and Mu Lingbing. Not only, it was to find out where the Yu clans had. The Yu clan was an extraordinary clan in the entire Xingxian continent. One could imagine how powerful their defenses were. A clan with such a background would have a few powerful old fellows overseeing it. As long as there were even the slightest clues, it was very likely that they would be discovered. Not to mention saving them in this kind of situation. Although he wanted to save them, it wasn't easy to do so. The Yu clan's actions were too secretive. It would take some time to rescue them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart sank. She also sobered up a little. Chapter 1082. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's mournful and desolate face, Di Beichen's heart ached. Ever since he had known Bailey Hongzhuang had always been strong. Nothing could defeat her. In Bailey Hongzhuang, he could always see a kind of strength that was unafraid. No matter how difficult the trial was, she never knew what it meant to be discouraged, or what it meant to give up. He had only seen Bailey Hongzhuang's pale face due to her serious injuries, but even at that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips could still blossom into a strong smile, like a winter plum, strong and unyielding. However, at this moment he saw her frailty, pain and helplessness. After losing her strong appearance, after encountering such a situation, Bailey Hongzhuang's helplessness made his heart ache. She was only a 16-year-old girl, but she had to bear such a deep blood feud. Moreover, her enemies were the powerful Yu clan and Long clan. He was so worried that Bailey Hongzhuang's small body wouldn't be able to take it. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand tightly. "My wife, you have to believe me. I will definitely save them." His deep and dignified eyes flashed with a resolute light. Di Beichen secretly swore in his heart that no matter what, he would definitely do it. Even if it was very difficult, so difficult that it was hard for him to do it. He believed that there would always be a way out. As long as they thought of a way, as long as the Yu clan really did it, then they would definitely be able to think of a way to save them. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, looking at Di Beichen, as if she was looking at her last life-saving straw. She was so powerless now. The time given to her was too short. She wasn't strong enough to face the Long clan and Yu clan, those kind of colossal forces. Currently, she could only rely on Di Beichen's strength, and rely on him to save her parents. "I believe in you." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She knew too many things today, making it hard for her to bear. Her entire mind was in a mess. "My wife, maybe the situation isn't as bad as we think. Your parents have been trapped in the Yu clan for so long, but they have been persevering all this time. This proves that they still have hope in their hearts. Moreover, other than going to the Yu clan a little enthusiastically, Lan Jingquang has been going there less and less. After all, he has been flaunting his strength for so long. He doesn't need to prove everything to your parents. Now your parents should have a chance. As long as you give us a little more time, we will definitely be able to do it." No matter what no matter what, he had to help her reunites to Yu family. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She also understood the meaning of Di Beichen. Now that 15 years had passed, she believed that Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan had shifted their attention to other places and relaxed their watch over her parents. She believed that although Lan Yunxiao and Yu Manlan had lost their freedom, they wouldn't suffer too much during this period. "We still have time. They will definitely wait for us to save them," Di Beichen emphasized. He wanted to pass on his strength to Bailey Hongzhuang. "My wife, you are their hope. Don't be discouraged." Chapter 1083. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen. She could feel the power that Di Beichen was transmitting to her. She nodded heavily. "I understand." Her originally dark phoenix eyes were once again filled with a resplendent and resolute light. "I will definitely take back everything that belongs to me with my own hands." She, Bailey Hongzhuang, had never had the habit of letting her things fall into the hands of others. Now that she knew everything, she was going to take it all back. Those fellows who stole her family's things, and were still immensely pleased with themselves, she would personally let them taste the taste of pain. She wouldn't fall, and she couldn't fall. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had given up everything for her, endured humiliation, and abandoned their dignity just so that she could live on. And now it was time for her to work hard for her parents. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's small face brimming with stubbornness, and his nervous heart quietly relaxed a little. At least, Hongzhuang wasn't crushed by this enormous pressure. Pressure was often a good thing for cultivators. Only with pressure would there be motivation, and pressure was often the motivation for cultivators to move forward. The only difference was that the pressure was too great and too heavy. He thought about it for a long time before he told Hong Zhuang about the cause and effect of the situation. He was worried that once Hong Zhuang couldn't bear this pressure, she would completely collapse and never be able to recover from this setback. Cultivators like this could be found everywhere, and he had seen too many cultivators with weak wills. Similarly, once Bailey Hongzhuang could bear this pressure, she would become different. Her will would become even more tenacious, and no one would be able to destroy it. Fortunately, Hong Zhuang had passed this hurdle, just as he had guessed. However, Hong Zhuang's determination at that moment made his heart ache. Di Beichen hugged Bailey Hongzhuang again, his low and resolute voice ringing out from Bailey Hongzhuang's side. No matter what, I will always be by your side. He would always be by Hong Zhuang's side, and wouldn't let her bear this alone. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Di Beichen was the only person she could rely on now. Fortunately, he was by her side. Otherwise, it would be even more difficult for her to do this. You're tired. Have a good rest. Di Beichen said with concern as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's pale face. Have a good rest first. As for these things, you can think about them tomorrow. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand, and was about to return to the room, when he realized that his hand was wet. Upon closer inspection, Di Beichen realized that his hand was wet with blood. Di Beichen couldn't help but be startled when he realized this. He immediately grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand, only to realize that her fair and tender little hand was already covered in blood, and there were deep crescent-shaped scars on her palm. Di Beichen finally understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was using this method to vent her stress. Does it hurt? Di Beichen spread out Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand. Seeing her so sad, he felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. You can't control what happened back then. Don't punish yourself with other people's mistakes. They will definitely be punished. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't answer. She understood the meaning of Di Beichen's words, but it wasn't so easy to face it calmly. She needed time to calm down. As long as she was given some time to think, she would face it with strength. Chapter 1084. Di Beichen knew that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to talk, so he didn't force her. He immediately pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit at the side, and carefully and meticulously treated Bailey Hongzhuang's wound. After cleaning the bloodstains, Di Beichen saw how deep the wound was, and how much strength Bailey Hongzhuang had used to pinch it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even frown from the beginning to the end, so he only noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, and didn't notice her hands. After Di Beichen bandaged Bailey Hongzhuang's wound, he couldn't help but ask with concern, "Wife, you should rest in my room tonight." He was really worried about Bailey Hongzhuang when she was like this, and he only wanted to watch over her tonight. However, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "Beichen, don't worry, I'm fine. My mind is a little messy, and I want to calm down by myself." Hearing this, Di Beichen carefully sized up Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. When he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was natural, and there wasn't any problem, he nodded and said, "All right, then you should have a good rest tonight." Di Beichen accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang out of the room, and the three beasts outside the door quickly hid after hearing their movements. Previously, they had been outside the door thinking of a way to get in. After all, they couldn't let their master leave them behind just like that. After hearing what Di Beichen had to say, they fell into silence, as they were thinking of ways to deal with the situation outside the house. Previously, they were very curious about their master's background, but no one would have thought that so many things had happened that year, and that their master's life had been completely rewritten. Xiao He and Xiao Bai knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had transmigrated from her previous life, but after obtaining the memories of this life's Bailey Hongzhuang, these two lives had become one, and there was no distinction between them. Their master had already died in her previous life, and she was now the continuation of Bailey Hongzhuang in this life. Therefore, everything that happened to Bailey Hongzhuang in this life was equivalent to their master's matters. This kind of background was really hard to accept. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang enter the room and watching the door close, Di Beichen stood at the door for a long time, and only returned to the room after hearing that there was no movement inside. Some things could only be understood if the person involved had thought it through. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to face everything calmly. But to suddenly know so many things, her feelings must be very complicated, and she would need time to sort them out. He believed that when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang tomorrow, Bailey Hongzhuang would pull herself together. His wife was always so strong. After Bewitching entered the house, the three beasts gathered together, but at this moment, the faces of the three beasts were flashing with anger. Damn Lan Jingquang's family, their methods are too despicable. Little Black's face was filled with resentment. Just by listening from outside the door, he wanted to tear that family apart and skin them alive. The Yu family will die a horrible death, and they still want to be a medical family? Their actions are so despicable. Where is the benevolence of a doctor? Baisher's eyes were burning with anger. This kind of family should simply disappear from Shengxian continent. The Lan family is also not good people. After such a thing happened, they still protect Lan Jingquang's family. I'm so angry. Chapter 1085. The three beasties understood that what disappointed Lan Yunxiao the most wasn't Lan Jingquang or the Yu clan, but the Lan clan's attitude. He used to think that everyone in his family supported him, but after such a thing happened, he felt as if he had been betrayed by everyone. Just imagining this feeling of anger and heartache was unbearable, let alone Lan Yunxiao himself. Just like how their master felt, their consolation was useless. Only Bailey Hongzhuang could bear it. After learning about the penguins, the three beasties put away their playful attitude. Before this, they didn't have any sense of urgency. Their only enemy was Han Xiling, and they believed that their master would have no problem dealing with Han Xiling. Thus, they had been very relaxed during this period of time. Now that they knew that their master still had a blood feud, they felt a sense of nervousness. They didn't have time to continue fooling around. They had to become stronger with their master. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher looked at each other. They all understood what they were thinking. Clearly they had the same idea. Let's go in and accompany master first. Be quiet and don't disturb her. Xiao He's eyes flickered with worry. At this time, they were really worried about leaving their master alone. They didn't want to disturb her, and only wanted to accompany her quietly. This way they could be at ease. Okay. Xiao Bai and Baisher nodded. The three beasties immediately tiptoed into the room. Bailey Hongzhuang lay on the bed, her gaze landing on the ceiling. She couldn't sleep. This matter had given her too much shock. Now that she thought about it carefully, she had two opponents, the Yu clan and the Lan clan. The Yu clan naturally didn't need to be mentioned. The reason why she and her parents had fallen to such a state was because of the Yu clan. If they hadn't relied on their superior medical skills, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan wouldn't have dared to do this, because they had no way of extricating themselves. This so-called medical aristocratic family was truly vicious. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with extreme hatred. When she thought about how her parents had abandoned their pride and begged the Yu clan for her, how the Yu clan had humiliated and killed them in every possible way, her hatred towards the Yu clan had reached its peak. More than 10 years had passed, and the Yu clan was still enjoying a great reputation in the Shengxian continent. However, she would personally end all of this for the Yu clan, because they were not worthy. As for the Lan family, from the moment the Lan family chose to abandon their family, their original feelings were already gone. She didn't believe that the Lan family didn't know about the Yu family's pursuit of Lan Yunxiao. However, they hadn't done anything for so many years. Just from this point alone, it could be concluded that there was no longer any affection between them. As the head of an aristocratic family in her previous life, Bailey Hongzhuang knew very well that this was a common occurrence among aristocratic families. A cultivator who had lost his future, no matter how glorious he was in the past, would not be of any use in the future. For a clan, people with strength were the most important. Although many people could understand the situation of these aristocratic families, it was still somewhat lacking in humanity. If Lan Yunxiao didn't come from such a powerful cultivation family, the situation might have been different. Chapter 1086. Bailey Hongzhuang's mind was filled with thoughts. She was very clear on how powerful a cultivation aristocratic family was. If she wanted to overthrow them, she would have to have the ability to contend against them. This was undoubtedly difficult for the current her. But as long as she had the heart to do it, everything was possible. Even if there were countless dangers in front of her, she would ride the wind and break through all of them. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's current situation was extremely bad, but it was impossible for her to save them in a short period of time. Di Baichen would help her think of a way. She also understood that even with Di Baichen's ability, it wouldn't be easy for him to accomplish all of this. After all, although Di Baichen was the young master of Tiangang sect, he wasn't the true sect master yet. Tiangang sect was on the same level as the Yuan Lan families. The Yuan Lan families were connected by marriage and stood on the same side. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be for Di Baichen to accomplish this. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly, but her eyes became increasingly resolute and bright. Now that things had reached this point, she had no other choice. She could only follow the most suitable path and walk down it step by step. She only hoped that her parents would be able to wait until the day she rescued them. While Bailey Hongzhuang was pondering, Di Baichen didn't rest. He understood that Hongzhuang was most concerned about her parents' safety. As long as they could save the two, then Hongzhuang would be much more at ease. As for the matter of revenge, they still had time to do it. But the matter of rescuing Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had to be done as soon as possible. He would think of a way to save them. No matter what method it was, as long as it could be done, it would be the best result. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang woke up early. With the current situation, she had no reason to slack off. She had to pull herself together and become stronger as quickly as possible. When Di Baichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was in high spirits. A trace of joy flashed through his eyes. "Wife," Di Baichen called out softly. Last night, he had been worried about Hongzhuang. Fortunately, the situation was as he expected. Hongzhuang was like a bright little sun, always strong and full of strength. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her calm demeanor was the same as before, as if nothing had happened. "Baichen, I've decided to try the Blood Chi Tower again today. If I still don't succeed, we'll leave. What do you think?" Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with determination and confidence. She had already made up her mind. No matter what, she must obtain the inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower. Right now, she had no time to waste. She had to do her best. Only by increasing her strength would she be able to rescue her parents sooner. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's determined and resolute look, Di Baichen's deep starry eyes revealed a complicated look. He then nodded, "All right." Although the selection competition was urgent, and he had delayed it for quite some time, he still hoped to accomplish what he wanted to do. Hearing Di Baichen's reply, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. "Then I'll go to the Blood Chi Tower first. I'll wait for you to come back." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's back as she left, Di Baichen knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was not feeling well either. She was just stubbornly refusing to show it on her face. Chapter 1087. Tiangang Sect. Big Brother Di has been away from the sect for so long. We're still waiting for him to discuss the selection, but he hasn't returned yet. Han Xiling furrowed her brows. Her delicate and pretty face was filled with displeasure and dissatisfaction. She had not paid much attention when Di Baichen had gone to Fengbo country. Based on Big Brother Di's personality, it was impossible for him to take a fancy to anyone. The first 3 years had been peaceful. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would suddenly appear, and the two of them would get married? Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had appeared, the situation had changed completely. Big Brother Di had never been close to any woman, but he had told everyone that Bailey Hongzhuang was his wife. Initially, she had not paid much attention to Bailey Hongzhuang. She had only thought that Big Brother Di had been lonely in Fengbo country for too long, and was now so close to a woman. As long as Big Brother Di returned to Tiangang sect, he would completely forget about Bailey Hongzhuang. However, ever since she had seen Bailey Hongzhuang with her own eyes, she had felt an indescribable sense of threat. As the proud daughter of Tiangang sect, She had always been an idol in the hearts of women, and the target of men's pursuit. She had never felt that she could not compare to anyone. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's outstanding appearance was simply stunning. For the first time, a sense of jealousy rose in her heart. That kind of appearance was enough to make any woman jealous. The most unacceptable thing was that she had been humiliated in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Ever since she had been born, she had never been so humiliated. She had actually been taught a lesson by the master of the ruins in front of so many people. It could be said that it was a shame that she could not erase. Huang Fuhui and the others were not ordinary people either. Following their return, this news had gradually spread to other people's ears. This clearly had a significant impact on her reputation. Fortunately, this matter had not spread very widely. Ever since she had returned, she had been thinking of ways to find Big Brother D. Later on, when Big Brother D had finally returned, she had wanted to use this opportunity to cut off all contact between Big Brother D and Bailey Hongzhuang. Who would have thought that after Big Brother D returned, he would focus on handling matters and treat her even more coldly than before? In fact, she had always understood that although many people in the outside world said that she and Big Brother D were a couple, Big Brother D did not open his heart to her. However, she was not worried. This was because other than her, other women did not even have the chance to get close to Big Brother D. She had always believed that as long as she was given some time, Brother D would fall in love with her sooner or later. However, it seemed like it was too late now. Last time, Big Brother D couldn't wait to leave Tiangang's sect after dealing with the sex affairs. Even her persuasion to stay was useless. His absence lasted for several months. Obviously, Big Brother D had gone to look for Bailey Hongzhuang. As soon as she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was a threat, she sent people to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so lucky to be able to escape under such circumstances? She was extremely disappointed. Most importantly, she did not know what kind of bewitching potion Bailey Hongzhuang had given Big Brother D to make him give his entire heart to her. In the past, Big Brother D had never said anything harsh to her. This time, he had laid his cards on the table for Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Big Brother D did not say it personally, He Mu had always only listened to Big Brother D. Chapter 1088. Young Mistress, who exactly is Bailey Hongzhuang? Tao Tsongrong's eyes flashed with disbelief. She had been by Han Shiling's side since she was young. Her relationship with Han Shiling was just like the relationship between He Mu and Di Beichen. I just don't understand. A woman from a remote dynasty can actually make young Master D do such a crazy thing. It's really unbelievable. Tao Tsongrong could not believe it. Di Beichen was the dream lover of all the female cultivators in Tiangang sect. There were definitely many outstanding female cultivators in Tiangang sect, but Di Beichen had never been moved for so many years. Why did the situation change after he went out this time? She had always thought that young mistress was the best match for Nose Drop Chin. Hearing this, Han Shiling's mouth evoked a mocking smile. What else can that woman do besides seducing Di Dage with some foxy means? She did not believe that it was Big Brother D who fell in love with Bailey Hongzhuang first. It must be Bailey Hongzhuang, who tried every possible way to seduce Di Beichen. Tao Tsongrong opened her mouth wide, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. That Bailey Hongzhuang is actually so despicable. She's really despicable. She's not a good person to begin with. She thought that after hooking up with Big Brother D, she would have a meteoric rise. She didn't even check if she had the ability to fly up the branch and become a phoenix. Han Shiling's eyes were slightly cold. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, her relationship with Big Brother D was no longer the same as before. Last time, she had made a strange move. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang dared to come back with Big Brother D this time, she would definitely make Bailey Hongzhuang inconspicuous in Tiangang sect. She did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang would still have the face to continue staying here when all the elders accused Big Brother D of favoritism. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was thick-skinned enough to stay here, she would become the target of ridicule of all the cultivators in Tiangang sect. If Big Brother D protected her, it would only make everyone hate her even more. She was destined to pay the price for stepping into a place that did not belong to her, without sufficient reason. Young mistress, we must not let Bailey Hongzhuang have her way. Tao Tsongrong's face was filled with anger. Originally, she thought that the woman that young Master D had taken a fancy to was extraordinary. She didn't expect that it was such a despicable and seductive woman. This kind of woman wasn't qualified to compete with young Miss for young Master D. That's natural. Han Xiling sneered. She can't beat me. Tao Tsongrong chuckled. She knew very well what kind of person her young miss was. All women would feel ashamed of their inferiority when they saw young Mississippi. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had used such despicable means to temporarily win young Master D's heart, she believed that it would not be long before young Master D understood who the real Phoenix was. Songrong, go and tell grandfather to urge Big Brother D. After all, the selection competition is about to begin. The other sects are all waiting for Big Brother D. Han Xiling's expression was calm. She had plenty of ways to get D Baichen away from Bailey Hongzhuang. Tao Tsongrong immediately understood and smiled. Don't worry, young mistress. I'll go and tell Great Elder immediately. After Tao Tsongrong left, a smug smile appeared on Han Xiling's cold and moving face. Bailey Hongzhuang had never been her opponent. Chapter 1089. Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the Blood Qi Tower again. The cultivators in the Blood Qi Tower were very indifferent when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang had been coming to the Blood Qi Tower every day to try to pass the trial. Currently, no one knew which level Bailey Hongzhuang had reached. They only knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was above level 3. After all, no matter how high the trial was, they could not pass it themselves. Naturally, they would not know Bailey Hongzhuang's results. Bailey Hongzhuang is really persistent. She has been trying to pass the trial here for a few months, and she is still so tenacious. Just this perseverance alone is enough to make people gasp in admiration. In my opinion, she is blind. Does she really think that the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower is so easy to obtain? If it was so easy, there would be more than a few people in the history of the Blood Qi Tower. In recent years, only a man named D Baichen obtained the inheritance a few years ago. At that time, it was shocking. Because of D Baichen's success, more and more cultivators have been trying to obtain the inheritance in recent years. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang walking to the higher levels without saying a word. They could not help but sigh with admiration, but they could not help but feel envious. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's current performance was indeed amazing. Bailey Hongzhuang went directly to the 9th level of the Blood Qi Tower. She decided to give it a try today. No matter what the final result was, she could not delay D Baichen's important matters. She wanted to let D Baichen leave first while she stayed in the Bloodground Abyss for a while. However, the selection competition was about to begin. Even if she stayed here, she could not stay for long. Moreover, D Baichen would definitely be worried about her if she stayed in the Bloodground Abyss. Therefore, she did not mention this idea. There was only one room on the 9th floor of the Blood Qi Tower. However, Bailey Hongzhuang felt extremely helpless about the test on the 9th floor, because this was simply an unsolvable trap. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked in, an identical Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of her. The same clothes, the same appearance, the same outfit, and even the same application. The person in front of him was exactly the same Bailey Hongzhuang. Not only that, he even had the colored glass sword, and it was exactly the same in terms of power and nature. He even had the chaos ring on her hand. After these few days of testing, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that the other party knew all the martial skills that she knew. No matter when and where, their actions were exactly the same. If he wanted to kill the other party, he would have to die. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had been racking her brains. Even if the opponent was an orange or yellow level opponent, she would not be so helpless. This was because there was at least a chance of winning. It was too difficult to defeat an identical version of herself. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly looked at the identical version of herself. For the first time, she had the urge to kill herself. The Bailey Hongzhuang opposite her did not move. They were like mirror images. They were exactly the same. Bailey Hongzhuang did not attack. This was because she had tried all kinds of attacks. Even if she was beaten black and blue, and the other party was also beaten black and blue, she could not kill herself. Chapter 1090. A proud and complacent voice rang out from Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth. Her mocking look was as if she had already determined the outcome. However, in the face of her opponent's provocation, Bailey Hongzhuang was incomparably calm. Even though the Blood Qi Tower had imitated her appearance, it could not imitate her personality. Based on her opponent's tone of voice alone, she could tell that they were different. However, just as her opponent had said, she had not found a way to defeat her opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately sat down at the thought of this. She had used all kinds of attack methods before. Both parties would have to endure the same amount of power. Even her opponent's way of dodging and battle experience would be exactly the same as hers. She had even tried to severely injure herself before letting her opponent die first. However, it was to no avail. What kind of method can I use to defeat you? Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her willowy brows. Heaven never bars one's way. She believed that since the Blood Qi Tower had set up this trial, there must be a way to solve it. However, she had not found a way to solve it yet. In the end, what part of his body was different from the Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him? Bailey Hongzhuang continued to ponder. Countless methods surfaced in her mind, but she dismissed them all. Over the past few days, she had thought of almost every method, but she could not think of a single one. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the chaos ring. Her pitch-black phoenix-like eyes suddenly lit up. Come to think of it, the most mysterious item on her body was the chaos ring. She did not know what the chaos ring was used for. However, up until now, everything in the chaos ring had shocked her. At the same time, it was also one of her greatest weapons. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the identical Bailey Hongzhuang. The other party was also wearing a chaos ring. However, she did not believe that the Blood Qi Tower would be so heaven-defying that it would allow her opponent to have an identical chaos ring. Although she didn't know much about the chaos ring, she knew that it wasn't a simple ring. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a divine artifact. Such an item couldn't be easily imitated. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang also had the idea of giving it a try. Her mind moved, and her soul entered the chaos ring. Since coming to the Bloodground Abyss, the number of times she entered the Ring of Chaos had undoubtedly decreased greatly. This was because the practice in the Bloodground Abyss had been of great help to her cultivation. During this time, she had been focusing on improving her cultivation. Naturally, she had also practiced her inscription technique, but the frequency had decreased by a bit. The trial of the Blood Qi Tower had filled her with fighting spirit. Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the black and white palace. To her, the Chaos Ring was the only way to defeat the fake Bailey Hongzhuang. Since the other party's situation was exactly the same as hers, then when her spiritual consciousness entered the Chaos Ring, that Bailey Hongzhuang's spiritual consciousness would also disappear. In this way, when she went out again, the other party would be a dead person. However, if she was wrong and the other party's Chaos Ring had the exact same effect, then she could only think of other ways. Chapter 1091. However, while Bailey Hongzhuang was practicing the inscription technique, the entire Blood Qi Tower was in an uproar. A bright and resplendent golden light illuminated the entire Blood Qi Tower. Under this light, the blood-red Blood Qi Tower gave off a sense of holiness and grandeur. When this light appeared, all the cultivators in the Bloodground Abyss focused their attention on the Blood Qi Tower. To many cultivators, this ray of light was extremely unfamiliar, but many of them could search for the origin of this ray of light in their minds. This light seems to be the light that appears after someone obtains the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower. Yes, I've seen it once a few years ago. It appeared after Bewitching passed all the trials of the Blood Qi Tower. I didn't expect it to appear again. Who actually passed the trial? For a moment, all the cultivators in the Bloodground Abyss gathered outside the Blood Qi Tower. Looking at the bright light, they were extremely shocked. It can't be Bailey Hongzhuang, right? It was unknown which cultivator mentioned it, but the eyes of all the cultivators present changed. During this period of time, they all knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had been challenging the trials. However, none of them dared to imagine that Bailey Hongzhuang could reach this step. This was too heaven-defying. It can't be. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is good, how difficult is the trial of the Blood Qi Tower? I don't think she can do it. Who else could it be other than her? Everyone fell into silence. There were many cultivators who challenged the Blood Qi Tower trial. Not to mention passing the 9th floor. It was extremely difficult to pass the 6th floor. Other than Bailey Hongzhuang, they felt that it was even more impossible for other cultivators to succeed. After seeing the changes in the Blood Qi Tower, He Mu's handsome face was filled with joy. Young master, madam succeeded. He Mu's voice was filled with unconcealable excitement. Although he knew that the young master had always been confident in the madam, he also knew how difficult it was to break through the trial of the Blood Qi Tower. Back then, when the young master had passed this trial, it had caused everyone to exclaim in surprise. It had been many years since anyone had succeeded. However, the young madam had also succeeded. Just this point alone was enough to prove young madam's talent and ability. If this news were to spread, Miss Han would no longer be able to say that young madam was not talented enough. He had been by the young master's side for so many years, and had a certain understanding of Miss Han's arrogant personality. He was certain that Miss Han must have thought of the young madam this way. As long as the young mistress obtained the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower, this alone would be enough to shut the mouths of many people. As the young master's secret guard, he sincerely hoped that the young master could be happy. Naturally, he also hoped that the marriage between the young master and the young master's wife would not be opposed and discussed by them. Bewitching stood in front of the window, as his gaze fell upon the resplendent Blood Qi Tower. His peerlessly handsome face revealed a joyful smile. His thin and elegant lips curled into a joyful and admiring curve. He never thought that Hongzhuang would be able to pass the trial so quickly. A few days ago, Hongzhuang had been having a headache over the last stage. He never thought that she would be able to complete it on the last day. It was truly a pleasant surprise. Chapter 1092. When Bailey Hongzhuang emerged from the chaos ring, she realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had disappeared. When she saw this, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-like eyes were filled with astonishment. She then smiled in understanding. It seems that her guess was right. The Blood Qi Tower was unable to simulate the effects of the chaos ring. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. Since she had passed the final test, she wondered where the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower was located. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about how to obtain the inheritance, a blood-red ball of light suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall. The blood-red ball of light was mixed with specks of golden light. It was dazzling and bright, faintly emitting a heart-palpitating aura. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix-like eyes flickered with a bright light. She slowly approached the ball of light. Obviously, this ball of light should be the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out her hand towards the ball of light. The moment her slender fingers touched the ball of light, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a piercing pain. Immediately after that, a tyrannical energy flowed continuously from her fingertips into her body. Under this tyrannical energy, Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly activated the demon summoning scripture. If she did not activate the technique, she might explode and die under the infusion of this energy. After Bailey Hongzhuang had completely absorbed the blood-red ball of light, Bailey Hongzhuang sat down and clasped her hands together as she continuously activated the technique. As Bailey Hongzhuang continued to activate the technique, her aura gradually increased. The cultivators in the Blood Qi Tower kept looking at the stairs. They just wanted to know who the cultivator who had obtained the inheritance was. The inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower could be said to be a once-in-a-century occurrence. However, in just a few years, 2 cultivators had obtained the inheritance. It was truly shocking. What they were most curious about was how this cultivator managed to break through the trial. Everyone knew that the trials of the Blood Qi Tower were abnormal. The difficulty increased every 3 floors, and in the end, they didn't even have any hope of breaking through. If it was because they were not strong enough, it would be fine. However, the cultivators who passed the trial of the Blood Chi Tower were also in the Red Realm. Despite being at the same level of cultivation, the other party was able to pass while they were unable to do so. This was what was truly difficult to accept. No matter who the cultivator who obtained the inheritance was, he or she would become famous in the Bloodground Abyss. Inside the inn, young madam has successfully broken through the 9th level of the trial. Should we go and receive young madam? Blackwood raised his head and looked at Bewitching. Originally, the young master had insisted on staying in the Bloodground Abyss for the sake of the young master's wife's inheritance. Now that the young madam had successfully obtained the inheritance, the young master could finally let go of the things that he had been worried about. Bewitching shook his head slightly. Hong Zhuang has indeed passed the trial, but she still needs some time to obtain the inheritance. Let's wait. He had obtained the inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower before, so he knew that the inheritance also needed some time. He knew about the selection competition. Although the day of the selection competition was approaching, it wasn't as urgent as the Tiangang sect. Come to think of it, Han Shilling had something to do with it. He knew Hong Zhuang's temperament very well. She had always been someone who would not attack unless she was attacked. Chapter 1093. Hearing this, Heimu nodded slightly. He had not passed the trial of the Blood Chi Tower, and did not know about this. The last time the young master had obtained the inheritance, he was on the 6th level of the trial. At that time, the old sect master had led them. Now that he had surpassed the Red Realm, it was obviously impossible for him to obtain the inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower. When Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes and exited her cultivation state, anyone who was in front of her would notice that her ink-black phoenix eyes had unknowingly turned blood red. However, the blood-red color only appeared for a short moment, and soon returned to its original black color. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and beautiful face was filled with a trace of emotion. Even after obtaining the Blood Chi field, she could not help but feel amazed. The Blood Chi field was a very mysterious energy. It was like a coercion, but it contained a hint of blood, and had a power that could erode one's mind. This situation was not much different from what she had imagined before. However, it could suppress the opponent's cultivation in battle, and increase one's own strength. The Blood Chi Tower and the Blood Chi field are indeed magical. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint and moving smile. She felt a trace of relief in her heart. Fortunately, she had succeeded. If she had left this time, she did not know when she would be able to return here. She was already at the 8th level of the Red Realm. Once she participated in the selection contest, it was very likely that she would reach the Orange Realm. At that time, she would not have the opportunity to participate in the assessment. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile gradually deepened. Many things were destined. After obtaining the inheritance, Bailey Hongzhuang did not stay any longer, and immediately left the Blood Chi Tower. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the 3rd level of the Blood Chi Tower, almost all the cultivators' eyes fell on her. Look, Bailey Hongzhuang is out. In my opinion, the person who obtained the Blood Chi field must be her. Don't you feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's aura seems to have improved a lot? Don't worry. Once the inheritance is over, your name will appear on the Blood Aura Field's transfer pillar. Hearing everyone's discussion, Bailey Hongzhuang only glanced at them indifferently. Soon, all the cultivators in the Bloodground Abyss would know that she was the one who had obtained the Blood Aura inheritance. However, it didn't matter to her whether others knew or not. She and Bewitching were about to leave the Bloodground Abyss. Not only on the 3rd floor of the Blood Chi Tower, but the performance of the cultivators on the 2nd and 1st floors was also the same, or even more exaggerated. This was because they were cultivators who had not even passed the first 3 levels of the single elimination tournament. Bailey Hongzhuang had only been in the Blood Chi Tower for a few months, but she had already obtained the inheritance. In comparison, they had worked so hard for the inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower for so long, but it was all for naught. One could imagine the irony in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the tower under everyone's gazes. It was as if she had suddenly become the most famous character in the Bloodground Abyss. Soon, everyone noticed that a golden name was slowly appearing on the Blood Chi Tower's transfer pillar. The name is about to appear. Everyone was excited and held their breaths. They only wanted to know the final result. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.